There's been a lot of victim shaming. Everybody's, this is the only place where there's, Donald Trump is the victim and it's okay to shame him. He's been called Hitler. He's been called anti-Semitic. He's been called all these things for sharing the same opinions that he had 20 years ago, but it's not politically convenient to the Democratic Party.
Worth noting that one of the people who compared Trump to Hitler was J.D. Vance.
Back in 20, but this is...
That was Maga stooge Brian Lanza, who was on CNN last night, getting tripped up by reality, which is really what happens with most of MAGA when they're faced with a basic fact. And I'm going to show you a few more clips where that happens. And the reason why I'm showing you these is because they're a microcosm for what is happening across the country, that these MAGA supporters are speaking with authority, but the facts are just frankly not on their side. Here's Brian Lanza asserting that Democrats are people who attack free speech and that we're fascists. And then when asked a simple question about who's creating laws that are censoring free speech, he gets the answer totally incorrect. That clip in just a second. But I'm supporting Kamala Harris because she is going to continue fighting the climate crisis. I'm pledging that right now. And if you're with me, please sign the pledge in the description and in the comment below. It helps Kamala Harris and it's going to help the channel. Here's the clip.
Let's look at what fascism really is. Fascism is they want to restrict speech. I got to tell you, the Democratic Party has done more in the last 5 years to restrict speech than I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. I remember I was an ACLU proud member in college, carrying that card, proud ACLU member, because at some point they stood for free speech. And now with social media coming aboard, everybody's like, no, we need to have restrictions of speech. So yeah, I do believe there's fascist. I do believe there's fascist tendencies in the Democratic Party when they try to restrict free speech.
Democrats defend free speech. In fact, we have never once created a law that have tried to restrict speech. It is Republicans who ban books, who want to limit what kids can learn in school, who want to change history. It is Republicans who are now saying that we can't even say that Donald Trump's own words against him, that he wants to be a dictator in day one. That clip in a minute. But look at what happens when Brian Lanza is asked a simple question about who is actually creating laws against companies and free speech.
The other thing you were mentioning about restricting social media, how many laws do you think there are restrictions on tech companies? Just love you to tell me.
Hundreds.
Zero. Okay. Zero. No. So where are all these laws that you just said a lot of words?
Listen.
You literally just said a lot of words, all of which were untrue. There are no laws restricting speech online. In fact, there's one law, Section 230, that allows them to get away with anything.
Let me ask you
this. No, but
you
just said something that was willfully inaccurate.
Incredible. He is met with the fact, doesn't want to acknowledge that he was wrong, and then wants to pivot to something that is safer for him. This is exactly what happens with all Republicans. They're talking out of their asses. They don't know what they mean or what they say. They just try to assert something and try to say it enough times so that it eventually becomes true in the minds of their minions. And this is something that we have to do constantly, fact check constantly. Here is Scott Jennings saying that Donald Trump never said he was a dictator, that he'd be a dictator on day one. Look at what he said.
I have never said that Donald Trump was going to be a dictator until Donald Trump said he would be a dictator on day one. And so I know you're.
That's not what happened, though. It's not what happened. You know it's not what happened. That's not what happened.
But he used the words. He used the words. I guess what I'm just saying is
it's not what happened.
Oh, Scott, it is what happened, and I'm so sorry for you, but we actually have video evidence of it. Here is Donald Trump first being asked, are you going to be an authoritarian when you're in office? He does not answer. A layup question from his friendly friend, Sean Hannity. And then when there's a follow-up question, because Hannity is like, God, that looked pretty bad, Donald Trump gave us the answer that we all now talk about.
They want to call you a dictator. You use the words, I am your retribution. And now before that, you said if you've been wronged, and you used other words as well. But I want to be very, very clear on this. To be clear, do you in any way have any plans whatsoever, if reelected president, to abuse power, to break the law, to use the government to go after people?
You mean like they're using right now? So, in the history of our country, what's happened to us, again, has never happened before. Over nonsense, over nothing, made up charges. I often say Al Capone, he was one of the greatest of all time, if you like criminals. He was a mob boss, the likes of which Scarface, they call him. And he got indicted once. I got indicted 4 times. I wonder what my father and mother would say looking down.
So you notice how he didn't answer that question, right? Well, then Sean Hannity, just before going to break, asked him again. And then we got the famous quote that we all now use. Scott Jennings, watch.
We almost have to go to a break. I want to go back to this one issue, though, because the media has been focused on this and attacking you. Under no circumstances. You are promising America tonight you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
what?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border, and I want to drill.
That's
drill,
not. That's not retribution. I'm going to be. You know, he keeps. We love this guy. He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No. Other than day one."
Inconvenient, right? I mean, he literally says the thing. I don't know how. I don't know. I just don't get it. Are we just not supposed to believe the words that come out of his mouth? Like, does nothing that anyone says matters anymore? Because that, to me, when that happened, was very chilling. In fact, I can't forget about it. I knew exactly where to look to find the clip because it is such a stake in the ground in the moment that we find ourselves in. And I do think that if he were to win, we will have been like, well, he warned us. He warned us. And people like Scott Jennings try to dismiss it or try to say that never happened. Scott Jennings is doing just as much damage to the country as any MAGA acolyte because Scott Jennings is fascism with a smile. And look what happens when they're confronted with the fact that Donald Trump's actually the one who calls us fascists.
We just saw him call his opponent a fascist. Should he do that?
Should he call his opponent a fascist?
Yeah.
Listen, I think any...
If you want my answer to be no, then your answer has to be no in that moment.
The fact of the matter is, Donald Trump and Republicans are making up lies about us. And Democrats are just reporting on what is true. And if they are so upset about being called a fascist, well, then maybe they should talk to Donald Trump, because here's a supercut of him in just the past month referring to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden as fascists.
She's a fascist. Fascist. Far left fascist. These are young, smart people that happen to be fascist. He's fascist. Fascist movement that wants to throw you in jail. Fascist. This is fascist. Fascist. They're fascists. He's surrounded by fascists. A corrupt and fascist regime.
So like with all things with Republicans, Donald Trump, and MAGA, the projection is actually an inward accusation. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please hit like on the video. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. And if you made it to the end, leave a blue heart so I know. And I'm going to end it with this. We have Taylor Swift. Here's who MAGA has.
Woo!
It sounds good, but it's not me. There we go. We ready to make America great again?
Yes, sir.
Sing on the song about me. I'm only going to scream on me. What's going on, guys? So how's everybody doing?
I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?